Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Gee from the Office of Alumni and Family Engagement on behalf of the Offices of Alumni and Family Engagement and Career Services. Welcome to Unspoken Rules from Mutters to Mutters, the journey of first-generation student to career professional with Spontaneous McKnight Russell, class of 95, Arthur Reyes, class of 18, and Scott Hampton, class of 94. Thank you for joining us today. This will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa and Sangeon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Gee. I'm the program manager in the Office of Career Services, and I'm joined today by Sangeon Park, class of 2026, and he'll be moderating our panel today.
Nice. So I think the first thing we would do is can we do like quick introductions of your name, your class year, current profession, and the career trajectory since leaving Mud? Yeah, whoever wants to go first.
Can you roll call us, please?
Oh, okay.
You're driving the bus, man. So
Um, Scott, how about you go first?
see, I volunteered myself. Class of 94. I was one of a small number of experimental, non-traditional adult students that came in as a transfer at Mud back in the day. What have I been doing since then? Let's see. I've had like seven. We've all had lots of careers. It changes every few years. I've run two consulting companies for medical devices, pharmaceuticals, drug delivery, and cosmetics. I've done a couple of turnarounds. I have raised money and lost it in from venture capital and in startups. And I am currently working on my own personal brand of formulations for people who have eczema and chemical sensitivities. I figured I've got 35 years of doing this. I would drill down on stuff that affects me personally. Other than that, I work with a bunch of different brands. I never thought I would be working with hair care and skincare companies. I was always a hardcore medical person, and yet it's a good thing I got into that before the pandemic because, the feds have turned off the flow of science. So medical device and pharmaceutical development it's not dead, but it's a dead man walking. There you go. I don't know.
Does anyone else want to go next?
Arthur's on mute, so I'll go next. I'm Spontaneous Russell. Last name was McKnight when I was at Mud. Let's see, I went to Mud because I really, really wanted to be a biomedical engineer. And of course, Mud doesn't have biomedical engineering, but everyone told me, you got to learn the basics anyway. And I really wanted a well-rounded education. Having the other colleges there was also a big draw. So I ended up at Mud and then hated engineering, loved biology, and am now a product manager for basically a medical device company. My career trajectory, I actually, when I left Mud, went to graduate school in molecular biology and biochemistry. Thought I was going to get a PhD and be a professor, and that also was sort of no, this isn't really for me either. And ended up getting a job in sales and kind of working my way out of sales into technical positions, technical support, and then I found kind of my groove in product management, which is kind of a hybrid product development and also product promotion type of role. So I've had mostly, in between marketing and product management, that's where I spent most of my career at different biotech companies, and I'm still loving it. Just realizing, kind of at that point in my career where it's like I'm probably closer to retirement. Well, I am closer to retirement than I am to when I got started, but it's been a fun journey.
Thank you.
All right. Arthur Reyes, I go by Art, or I got dubbed the name Art as soon as I got to college because apparently Arthur was too long. First generation college student, parent of immigrants. Didn't really know what an engineer was or did, but all I knew is I had an opportunity to attend Harvey Mudd College and try to take as best advantage as I could. Really struggled in Mudd. It was a really difficult journey. Ended up doing 5 years at Harvey Mudd. Kind of stumbled into a role at the city of Los Angeles, at LADOT. I'm a transportation engineer now there. Been here now for almost 7 years. So not as many career paths as Scott or spontaneous, but hopefully we'll get there eventually. I would say I don't really love engineering. I think it's kind of boring, but that's just me personally. I'm sure other people at Mud would disagree. However, I've really have found this to be a place where I can kind of get settled in. Um, there's public service loan forgiveness options through the state and government. So I'm kind of locked in here for at least 10 years to pay off the rest of my loans. Um, I do enjoy the people I work with. There's a lot of really smart people who work at LADOT and they are really passionate about, making a difference in the city. And I've done work as a design engineer and a project engineer, project management with some grant management as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for if you're not really sure what you want to do, you can get a lot of experience at the city pretty quickly because of internal rotation programs. So I would recommend that if you have a keen sense of giving back to your community. I think it's a great opportunity to work at the city. Definitely less traditional than I would say most routes, but I think a lot of students at Mud end up going into some kind of tech work or PhD program. So a little bit less unorthodox, but they happen to be there at career fair, and all I needed was an opportunity. So I kind of jumped on it and after many months of waiting, which the city does take a long time to hire people, finally made it in. So, yeah, less traditional, but still very happy right now. It's allowed me to, at my job, it's allowed me to do a lot of different things, focus on myself, focus on my health. We have a 410 schedule, which is really nice because then you get every Friday off and you can hang out with the retirees at the park playing pickleball. So, a lot of other reasons to work at the city beyond just, some good pay, which I'm sure other private industries can pay a lot better. But for now, it's really been a good spot for me. So thanks for having me.
Cool. Thank you so much. I think the next question that we have for you is what did being first gen student mean to you as you started exploring these job opportunities and internships, even like research opportunities earlier on in your college career? Um, yeah, does Scott want to go first again?
Yeah, we're gonna go from oldest to youngest. Sure, we can do this. Um, we're all adults here. I didn't have the first fucking clue. I got to Mud. I didn't know how college worked. I did not understand all the things. Um, but it was great because the nice thing about Mud was between the way that the classes were structured and then getting into the various clinic projects and everything, it was an immersive atmosphere of learning how teams work and how to work as a group and all the rest of that. So it was interesting. And then going on further into the career, I went to get my master's. I was on a PhD track. I think spontaneous, you were too. And I realized like 9 months or 12 months into it, it's like, just give me my master's and let me out. I am not going to be a professor. I am not going to do any of those things. I would like to be hands-on and actually touch things and make them work. So I'm as I've gotten older and I've done a little therapy. Therapy's great. One of the things I've realized as first generation college students, when you go in and you don't have any kind of basis from your family, you didn't grow up around the kitchen table talking about who's going where and what are your what are your extracurriculars? And your parents are not professional. They're not the kind of people who go in and do executive work or go in and do academic work. You come in with such a naivete. I think Mud was, compared to having gone to a much larger institution, Mud was a much better environment because the opportunity to absorb that stuff informally from the other students was there. But you carry that forward because you weren't lined up and put on a ski ramp. So you've heard all three of us have said that to one way or another, we either bounced around between different jobs and careers, or as Arthur was saying, he bouncing around within an organization, doing a bunch of different things. We didn't come in with a good, well-formed idea of, it's like, what do you say, Arthur? You want to be an engineer, but what do engineers do?
They send emails.
Yeah. Yeah, so we just muddled our way through, and then we get out and we kept doing that. And I think the strength of it comes from the bullheadedness of you get through the first gate, you can get through the next gate, you can get through the next gate. And the hard part is you're still running without good models. So I'm going to shut up. And I guess since we're doing this from most gray hair to least, I'm going to toss it over to you, Spontaneous.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, I think in terms of that not having a clue thing, I think that feels familiar. Yeah, I think from my perspective, it was more like um, I was always a little bit of an overachiever as a kid, so my parents just expected me to do everything. Um, and once I got to college, and it was like you kind of get to that sophomore year point where you're like, gee, when I was a sophomore in high school, I already knew, like had my list of colleges, and I was already like, you're already positioning yourself for the next thing. And I had that like fear of like, oh my God, I have no idea what's next. And so I did what I thought was the right thing to do, which was okay, everyone goes to grad school. That's especially if you're a biology major, you don't have any specialties yet. And I didn't have, I think as a first gen student, like not having that network of of other experiences from either your family or neighboring families to learn from, like, hey, people take gap years, people work for a little while and just figure out what they want to do. Like that didn't feel like an option for me, which was, I think in retrospect, a naive mistake. Like, I would think I could have thought through other options a bit better and maybe spent less time bouncing around early in my career. Not saying that I wouldn't have gone to graduate school, but I might have gone in with the premise of I'm here to get a master's. I'm not here for a PhD. Because yeah, I'm also a hands-on person, and I do love teaching, but I was not a bench scientist. That's for sure. So yeah, so I think that like just having a little bit, your perspectives are built in a certain way, and sometimes even like, I mean, my parents, one is an immigrant, one isn't, and it's like from the immigrant side of the family, it was very much like you have to work hard, you have to do everything. It was always like take on another job, go get another degree. It was very much like push everything through to the very end, and you don't have to do that. So I think that's learning about your options, taking the time to talk to people, talk to friends' parents, talk to people on campus like that. There's different support networks at school that I think you can leverage. You just gotta have your ears and eyes open.
Right. It's so funny how quickly the pathways diverge for everyone else. I feel like it's like that first gen tunnel vision. You just think you have to get to the other side in order to be successful. But in reality, if you see some of your classmates, you'll start to see it with some of your classmates. They already have maybe some, their parents have, different experiences, in tech or whatever profession, and they're already willing to kind of pivot. Like they would even, for God forbid that they drop out of school and start their own business. It's like, oh my gosh, that seems so terrifying and so nerve-wracking. But to them, that's just, that's where their career might be and end up taking them, and they're ready to pivot to something else if that's not the case. But so much for us is that, we want to kind of get to that sense of, maybe that sense of security. My parents didn't have a lot of money, but we got by. But I had this idea in my head that I had to kind of achieve this, this profession in order so I could be a breadwinner or provider for my family, when realistically they were okay. They didn't need me to do that. They're like, Artie, we've gotten through life without you before you got to this point. And I was putting a lot of unnecessary pressure on myself to figure that out. And I could have really just, used that time better to really figure out what was the best pathway for myself. And spontaneous, like you said, you kind of get into this gosh, my train of thought is all over the place. But I really appreciate what you said earlier about, not necessarily knowing where you wanted to go, but if you would have just given yourself, that time for yourself, I think that would have been, that's something I wish I would have done. And college is not just about getting to the finish line. It's all the, moments in between. You're learning from your classmates, like you said, Scott. I honestly think, if anything, at Mud, it's that I'm such a different person than I was when I walked into there. I was just another kind of kid from the Inland Empire, and I really didn't have, much knowledge about the world. But through the osmosis of conversations and, lived experiences with friends, I really learned a lot about myself and what really mattered to me. So if that's what you take away from college, even that is a victory. It doesn't just have to be the degree at the very end.
Um, Arthur, you sparked a thought in my mind about feeling a certain obligation to be able to support your family.
Hmm.
And so I have a question, a loaded kind of a question. Um, for the three of us who were on the panel, how many of us had parents who owned a house?
Yeah, my parents eventually owned a house. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
was very, oh,
when you
sorry.
came in, your parents owned a house?
Trying to remember. No, I think when I started, my mom was still renting. She was in between houses. My parents got divorced, so they owned a house together. My parents divorced, and mom rented for a while, and then she like bought a house when I was at Med. Yeah.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I got the guilt trip. This is when I had an ROTC scholarship and I turned it down.
Hmm.
Yep.
She I think she wanted to stop speaking to me about that because
But
because then she had to take out loans to help pay for school, and I had to take out
Right.
loans, whereas
yeah,
ROTC would have been covered, but I wasn't. I that was a commitment I wasn't ready to make.
I'm glad you didn't. Arthur, what about you?
So luckily my father bought a house before I was born, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, so,
go
but,
Dad.
he was, in house debt, his whole life. And so we were very lucky, and that we had a really stable home. My parents did divorce when I got my freshman year into college. And that kind of threw a wrench into my mental health a little bit. But I was very fortunate to have a home to grow up in, and I know that's not the reality for a lot of first gen students. So in that sense, I'm very fortunate. But yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, my parents were transitory renters. We never lived the same place 2 years in a row. And I never knew why were we moving. Oh well, reasons. Um, so that was another thing that was a trip when I came to Mud. It's like most of these kids, they lived in the same house all their life.
The one
Yeah,
that's Oh, sorry, go ahead,
I was gonna
Spontaneous.
say it's a funny irony, but the longest when I got to Mud, that was like a 4-year stretch where I had the same address. And that was the first time in my life I'd gone 4 years having the same address. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
See? Yeah. I mean, and for people who are not like first gen coming in students, for people who have always had that kind of middle class, upper middle class, whatever it is, experience, they have no idea how many ways that shapes your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you come from that kind of uncertain background, you are always hedging your bets, right?
Mhm.
My grandpa used to say you should always have a carrot, just because you should have a food reserve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and that kind of thinking, it really does change the way you look at opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
because subtly or unsubtly, you're doing risk analysis. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm 3 years in on this program. Damn it. I got all this sunk costs. I got to get this done. I got to go get the next degree. I got to get a job. How the hell am I going to pay for all of this? Boom, boom, boom. And that puts a lot of different kind of constraints on than if you came from the kind of family where stuff was settled, you know? And it's like what you were saying, Arthur, earlier. It's like people would take a year off. That would blow my, what? You're not,
You're
ah!
not working? What? You're not going to school? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing a gap year and you're going to Thailand.
Right. Right.
Well,
And on the flip
¿dónde
side,
está el dinero?
yeah, it's oh yeah, no, absolutely. The other on the whereas my experience, oh, sorry, I keep getting a weird Zoom crash notice. I also I had the opportunity to be a what is it called? Worked in the admissions office as a student representative and interviewing students who applied to Harvey Mudd. And I was just, it's so shocking when everybody you talk to is like, oh yeah, I've been, not home for the past 2, 3 years because I've actually been at a I forget what the term, but like a boarding school, like a school, these schools where students go and spend time away from their families at such a young age and are already getting these like world-class educations. So it's a very different world that first gen students generally come from. But yeah, I think everybody made some great points there.
Thank you. I think these are like really good insights that you shared with us. Like kind of talking about the like differences that first gen has with other students that you faced during your college years. How did you experience or how did you navigate through like the obvious like imposter syndrome at college, beyond college at work and stuff like that? Like what were some strategies you used to like kind of not feel that way? And like what advice do you have for students? Because I'm sure like the entire room kind of feels that very often, especially like their first time coming to Mud or first time getting a job. So yeah, like what would you have to say about that? Spontaneous, I think you could go first.
Sure, I can kick this one off. Okay, so imposter syndrome. This one's a funny one for me because people talk about it a lot, and the idea behind it is a bit more like you're worried that people are going to figure out that you're not as good as they think that you are, or that they're not, that you're not as good as they think you are. Um, and I've had that from time to time, but for me, most of my life I've had kind of the opposite. I've always felt like, I guess, I don't know if I think the term is chip on your shoulder. Like I always feel like I have to prove something. I always feel like I have to prove that I belong there, that I earned my way here because I'm good enough on my own. Like like every time I do my job search or get a promotion, I always, that's what I struggle with personally is okay, I gotta, when I'm the new person in the office, when it's, I'm introducing myself at a new company in a new role, it's like, yeah, I'm associate director of this or I'm director of that. And, like in my head, I'm like, and I earned it. Like, I'm smart, I'm capable, I will show you that, you did not make a mistake hiring me. And I feel like the imposter syndrome is a bit more like, holy crap, any day now they're going to figure out that I'm an idiot and they're going to fire me, which occasionally I've had that too. and I think from that perspective, I it was silly. My dad, uh, he was a military guy, and he used to do these affirmations of like, you don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it because he would make me do these things. I thought, oh my God, you're too much, Dad. Just step away. I can't do this right now. But it honestly is something I still carry with me to this day. Sometimes before a presentation, when I'm getting a little bit nervous, I'll kind of stop and center myself and think about, okay, you know what, you can do this. Like, you're prepared. You're competent. You're capable. You're confident. Let's do this. There's a bit of that like. Um, Negative self-talk that can creep in there. But I think for the most part, like, it takes a lot to even just diverge from what your parents think you should have done. Because sometimes, like, the ROTC scholarship, like, it was, a prestigious thing, especially, my dad was in the military. My mom was like, hey, this is free money. What are you saying no for? It takes courage, and you've got it because you made it to mud. So you kind of keep believing in yourself, and find a good network. That helps a lot too, having colleagues, whether they're friends from mud, who I still have my network of people that I connect with, or new people you meet along the way that really help you out.
I
I
think
can,
Arthur could go first. Yeah.
yeah, sure, I can hop in now. Yeah, I definitely second. I have a military dad too, so I know the affirmation part. So, he's like, "You're smart, Artie. You can do it." I'm like, "Okay, thanks, Dad." But there definitely are times when it doesn't feel that way, especially when you're in a hyper competitive environment like Harvey Med. Obviously, not like competitive in the sense of I think there's a good culture of people working together at Harvey Mudd, but it's competitive in the sense there's a lot of very smart, very talented people at the college, and it can easily make you feel some sort of way, some sort of inferiority or something like that. It takes a lot of introspection. I see, like, you have to kind of like analyze, like, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like out of place? And a lot of times it it takes time, at least for me, to really understand. It took a lot of time for me to really understand, what my values were, and like what inherent things I bring to the table as well. Maybe I wasn't the, person who can answer the question the fastest. But yeah, I think in college, especially, there's opportunities for really all sorts of skill sets to really shine. Whether you take up roles in leadership, whether you practice your communication, there's lots of, I think that's what I really enjoyed, or I felt really confident in myself, is actually when I was working at the Office of Admissions. I got an opportunity there, and I really started to, parents would come up to me, and they would say, like, my child is very shy, and you're so outgoing. And I took it as a compliment. But it was so those kind of opportunities to do things not just within your academic like track, like trying to take other opportunities, can really give you a chance to see, all the different things that you're capable of. So yeah, mix it up. Try some other things. If you're really feeling down about yourself, whether it's in your math or physics class, there's always other things that you'll see, and try to work on those things too. Get outside of your comfort zone. Try, apply to something that you might not think you would get the opportunity to do. I know for myself, I felt like I selected myself out of opportunities because I thought I wasn't good enough. But if you really just put yourself in those positions, and say, believe in yourself, and say, I know I can do it, or I'm going to apply to this anyways, even if I don't think I can do it. A lot of times other people believe in you more than you think, and believe in your ability. So try not to try not to sell yourself short, is what I would say.
I mean, I don't. I'm always troubled by the phrase imposter syndrome, because I just can't figure out exactly who's the imposter. And so I had this thing that got me through a lot of hard times when I was at Mud, and it keeps me going now, even though I'm 60. Um, I grew up in South Central LA. I knew Eazy-E when he was a kid. When I was in Mud, there would be these times when I've got people and I'm feeling intimidated, and it's like, wait a second. I can kick the ass of everyone in this room at the same time. All right? I may not be polished. I certainly don't have all these wonderful social skills. I have never gone skiing in the winter in Gstaad. I have not hiked the Appalachian Trail. I have never flown on a Concorde. But I have done some tough shit you would not understand if I told you about it. And so I think one of the things that a lot of first gen students can dig in on is if you got to Mud, if you're the first one in your family to go to college, you have already done something so incredibly hard that when the rest of the shit is raining down on you and you feel like you can't cope anymore, look around because you're tough. And that was a thought process that kept me going uh, all the way through Grandpa Stems back when Williams was teaching it. And those of you for whom that no longer exists and that professor isn't there, I just want to introduce you to a little bit of lore. And I see Spontaneous is kind of nodding along. That was as tough as it got. So if you are on your first go through, for all of the how does this work, the social deficits, the lack of a network, and all the rest of it, on the other hand, you've already proven you're tough. Tough and grit get shit done.
Great. Thank you. I think the next question was, I know Spontaneous talked about, the relationships that she made at Mud and how important that was. And I was wondering like how you built these positive relationships in school and especially beyond school, where in like the professional setting, especially since like most of us come from a background where we don't have a large network of people that we could go to for advice or for even opportunities. So how did you grow your network outside of college or even in college? And what advice do you have for, I guess, students that are starting out now to build these relationships going forward?
Do you mind if I started off
Yeah, of
Of
spontaneous?
course.
course.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I think in college, it was, saying yes to things, saying yes to hanging out with friends, saying yes to joining a dance class, whatever it was just saying yes to meeting new people, putting yourself out there, joining a club, joining a team, whatever it may be, getting involved in intramural sports. It was just getting as much exposure as possible and meeting as many people as you can because you're only there for such a short amount of time, and um, you never know who's going to end up being your best friend or who you're going to end up hanging out with. And the more people you get to know, it's just you're expanding your chances of finding people that you're going to, make these lifelong relationships with. It's so funny. I came in with the class of 2013. I ended up graduating in 2018. And now I spend a lot of time with graduates from 2020. And they're just like my closest friends. We spend so much time together. On the weekends, we do dinner parties. We play pickleball. We do all kinds of stuff, watch movies. It's just you never know who will be in the area that you are living in. I know a lot of mutters tend to flock to some of the bigger tech cities, San Francisco, New York. But here in Los Angeles, it's a little bit harder to drive around and see everyone. But I just try to keep the door open, let people get to know you. Through work as well, same thing, right? Like say yes to opportunities at work, and show people who you are, and give people the time and energy that they deserve too. Uh, if you haven't spoken to a friend in a long time, it's okay to reach out to them. I'm sure they would appreciate the contact, and to see how you're doing, and to see that you're doing well. Because life gets so busy at times, and folks think that, oh, just because it's this person, I haven't seen them in so long, like what does that relationship still look like? And I can tell you, it can look like you just hung out maybe 2 years ago, and it was just like you guys have been apart for a day. I was just at a wedding, celebrating the wedding of my two good friends who we lived. I was a senior proctor in West, and I pulled a friend at the time who was a junior into the suite across from me, and he ended up. I remember the night where he asked his now current wife to that he wanted to go out on a date with her. And now they're married as of this past weekend. So it's just like those little moments. If you make time for them, um, you're really going to get a lot out of it. So yeah, it's all times of the day. Say yes to things, and and yeah, keep those connections alive however you can.
Awesome. Scott, do you have anything to add in terms of professional relationships, relationships in college, and building your network as a first gen student?
Yeah, I've always been far out on the kind of the Aspie spectrum of what was your name? You look familiar. So I'm not as good at the networking thing. I do have several dear friends from my years at Mud, and we connect regularly. I was back for the 30th anniversary. Um, so I don't know. I think you have to be open to opportunity. The way the world has worked, and has gotten more so now, you don't know what tomorrow is going to be like. I mean, take all the politics in this country, and we're canceling science left, right, and center. So a mindset of being open to new opportunities and experiences, and showing up for the larger events and seeing what people are up to is really important. Um, but as I said at the beginning, I've bounced around a lot. I've ran a company in Berlin for 12 years that I started. And then I came back to the US. And so you try as much as you can to keep in touch, but when you're bouncing around like that, it's harder. So I think, Arthur, you've kind of been in the same geography for a long time. Spontaneous, I don't know what you've been up to, but I'm out here in Atlanta, Georgia, which I call the soul in the South. And it's a whole different environment professionally, intellectually, and in terms of business. It doesn't work the way it works in other places. I'd say that adaptability is a thing that we have, the people who came from a more normal background and whose parents had already plowed the field for them, they don't have. Is the ability to flex. We don't have the expectation that things are always going to be safe and easy, or that there's a parachute. The downsides are we can be a lot more conservative with our life and career choices, but the upsides are that we already have that mindset that you've got to adjust and adapt and cope as you go.
So I'll
Cool.
try to just add a couple quick things. Saying yes, I think that's a awesome advice. When I was in high school, I had a teacher give me, it was like the beginning of the school year. He's like, I'm going to give you guys some great advice. This will help you out, whatever you do in life. He's like, write this down. And so, being the nerd I was, I pulled out my notebook and literally wrote down. I wish I had kept the notebook. Like he said, on your back page of your notebook, write this down. So I did. And it was the 2 words: get involved. And that's really been a philosophy of mine that has really served me well. I'll give one quick anecdote, which was, for medical reasons, personal reasons, I actually ended up, I took a long extended leave of absence from a job that I really enjoyed. I never thought I'd have to leave, but I did. And the leave of absence turned into 5 years of being a stay-at-home mom. And that's when you think about, like, when if you're a parent and you think about taking a break that long from your career to just do family, like, from a first gen family perspective, it's like, okay, you just threw away all your college money, not working for 5 years. But and it was tough finding a job when I was kind of ready to go back. And it was a network thing. I bumped into a mom that I had met through a mom's group where, I actually got pretty involved in a play group for my kids, and ran into a mom who was about to go on maternity leave, and she was like, "Hey, my boss needs someone to basically be a contractor while she's out, or while I'm out. Like, are you interested?" And I was like, "Okay." And that was it. Like, helped me get my foot back in the door with the in the industry I wanted to be in. And 15 years later, I'm still solidly employed. So that was a really, staying involved, saying yes to things, being connected. It helps.
Awesome. I think right now we're gonna try to open up to a quick Q&A. But if we don't have any questions, we have questions here so we could continue with this discussion.
Like we mentioned earlier, we do have about 20 students in the room right now, and we were going to invite them to walk up just so that you can see their faces and say hello. I think we have our first one with Osa here, if you want to come up.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
My name is
Hello.
Osa.
Nice to meet you.
I'm a senior here at Mud. It was good hearing all you guys' stories. Very insightful things you guys talked about. Um, I guess my question would be, I guess I'm pretty scared myself that I won't be able to finish my degree here at Mud,
hmm
for certain reasons. Any advice on how to finish it out, or, how to close out strong?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think maybe Art's best to comment on this one first, but I also had my close call. Like, am I going to be here for 5 years? Oh
Yeah.
God, can I afford it? Um, Go ahead, Art. Sorry.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think any advice is good advice here. It's a really difficult situation. You're very brave for sharing that, because I know that's a very taboo subject at Harvey Mudd, because everyone is like 4 years and they get it done. And life is so much more complicated than what's happening in those 4 years. Um, I would say, you know, lean on whoever you can, if you have friends in, you know, whether they be people who work in the admissions, or people who work in, your student resources and things like that, professors, whoever it may be, lean on them, lean on your friends, um, and really try to, carve a path however it may look. Even if it doesn't need necessarily mean it ends up being at Mud. Um, there's other places where you can be successful. And even if you need a moment to, take time off from Mud, and reset, that is okay. That might just be the best thing for you at this time. Um, I know it really helped me as well. Go ahead, Scott.
I just want to say I had to do my extra semester. In my senior year, the first semester, I had a variety of familial and personal and health problems.
Hmm.
And I ended up only being able to complete 8 of my credits.
Hmm.
And so I I wasn't going to cross the line on time. And some smart people, Professor Borelli, who's long since departed this vale of tears, and my advisor both said, stuff happens. It's okay. Regather your energy, focus, and then tackle it when you can sleep at night. And so I don't know the specifics, but there's a lot of us dealt with stuff. That semester, like I said, I had family stuff, I had personal stuff, and I had a health crisis. What are you going to do about that? You got to display a little adaptability, step back from obsessing about the immediate, say, hey, this is my goal, but what can I do today? Now, that's my advice, and I do a lot of mentoring these days, and I have to tell people that all the time. As you can focus on the objective or you can focus on the calendar, but pick one.
Yeah, I think one thing about mud, I feel like it's so tough. It's rigorous intentionally, and I think you can start to get a feeling that that mud is that somehow things are out to get you. Like you get this like it's just you against the world feeling. And I think you tend to forget, especially when you're in it at mud, that like so many people are on your side. Your professors, even though they're giving you like the hardest shit to work on. Like they want you to succeed. Like they really want they want you to succeed. And so I think, and I did experience a time during my senior year where I was like I had to just start talking to my professors and saying, hey, you know what? I know that this is coming up, and I've also got this and this, and I really want to make an effort here. I don't want to just drop this. Like what are my options? Like, what can we do? And, you know, um, in my head, I'm like, the worst I could say is no, right? And sometimes it is, yeah, sometimes, most of the time it's enough. You get people working with you when you make your progress. And every now and then you do come across someone who's a little bit of a stickler for one reason or another and makes your life hard. But it's a learning experience.
You
But
gotta,
definitely, I think like making that effort to talk to your resources and recognizing that there's a lot of resources that you can leverage that maybe you haven't reached out to just yet. Um, yeah, and I like Scott's
there's a
advice. It's
ton of
like,
help. There's a ton of help if you ask for it. I mean, that semester I'd had a horrible bike accident, and basically I had to have my face reconstructed and dental implants done and everything. And a couple of the professors and the college, the admin, they found some money in some slush fund or something, and it all came together. It wasn't neat, but it got done, and you just have to say, I don't know what to do now. That's possibly the most powerful thing when you're stuck. Is I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, I was in my academic advisor's office maybe every week, up until graduation of my senior year. I was just like I knew I wasn't gonna be able to graduate on time, and it's like okay, let's start talking about what plans can we make. Is there summer classes I could take somewhere? And even sometimes they had to bend the rules just a little bit, but they want to get you across the finish line if they really can. And so even though it looks hopeless, really just if you're there, if you're persistent, and even then that might not be enough to graduate at mud, but somebody else, there's other pathways, maybe it's not at mud, maybe it's somewhere else, but you know, I know it's hard, but just don't give up. Yeah, just keep trying. And if you need to take time again, that's okay. But yeah, there's a way. There's a way, and it just a lot of times it just needs to you need to keep talking to as many people as you can about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
You want to come up?
Next victim, please.
Yeah, he's coming up.
I'm surprised you got 20 people there in September. That's awesome.
Hi, I'm Ryan. My question is for Arthur. Now that you've been an engineer for several years, what is an engineer to you?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I mean, I think that it really depends, right? I think there are some engineers, I guess like I'll start with what I thought an engineer was. I thought an engineer was this, magician who would show up to a lab and be like, okay, we're going to design the coolest and newest, most innovative technology that ever existed. And, we're gonna make rockets or engines and make things go faster than they ever gone before. I guess like that is what I thought engineers did. Realistically, I think engineers they could end up doing some really cool stuff, but I do think most positions as an engineer are are project managers with a technical expertise, whether it be in mechanical engineering, civil engineering, unless you're doing some kind of like design work, you really eventually your career path will take you to a role where you are managing other people and they will rely on your technical expertise. But a lot of times there's a lot of like managing of people and managing of schedules. And so really you end up being a project manager at the very end. And you send a lot of emails. That part is very true. At least in my experience, you send a lot of emails. But I don't want to discourage anybody from being an engineer. I think that's the last thing I want to do. I just I think when I talk to young engineers, there's this like idea that they're going to end up doing a very specific role, but a lot of times it's whatever the role is available to you at the time. Because you might not know what your circumstances are. The economy, obviously, we've talked about that a lot. What's happening in the grander world, you might decide you want to do something, but the world could say no at the time. I've had colleagues who, studied civil engineering at the city or before they got to the city. But then the economy at the time said, come back in 3 years, right? So you might have to go get a master's. And so I guess what I want to tell people is that just because it might not be exactly what you want it to be, um, again, don't necessarily think like, oh, it's not for me then. It might be the opportunity that you land into as an engineer. It might not look like what you think what it's supposed to look like, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Do I wish I wasn't an engineer? Personally, yeah, probably. But that's just me. I don't want to discourage anybody from doing what they love. If you love math and science and you love, you know, doing testing in a lab and maybe not seeing the sunlight for a while, yeah, go ahead, be an engineer. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, I think for it really just depends on where your drive is and where you want to go, and are you flexible? Are you flexible and able to try something new?
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, do you
Yeah,
guys want to answer what an engineer is too?
yes, because I've been doing it my whole life. I didn't know I was an engineer before I came to Mud, but I was a tool and die maker. So
Mhm.
I had to figure out how stuff works. My minor was dance. I love
Mine
dance,
too,
and
actually.
yeah,
Concentration.
exactly, still
Crazy.
do. I think we overlapped a little bit on the ballroom dance team 1 year, spontaneous. Yeah. And I think of engineering the way I think of dance. On the one hand, you have a rigorous training on how to do things. And on the other hand, like dance, you have all the constraints, the laws of physics, your body, your capabilities. Engineering is about making something that works consistently. I think that's the difference. It's got to be economic. It's got to work consistently. I've got an old friend and advisor of mine. He's retired 5 or 6 years ago from Japan, worked at Toyota. He spent his whole life making suspension systems work better. And just some amazing stuff. Race cars, sedans. How do you make an inexpensive sedan that can handle potholes? How do you make a car that can go 350 miles an hour stick to the track? And you got the science side and you got the art side, and you don't get good at it until you've done it for a long time. You just got to go out there and get on the dance floor and step on some toes.
Amazing. As we're coming up on time, I wanted to thank you all for being panelists today, but I did want to end on one short phrase, sentence, whatever it might be, a piece of advice that you would have for our students here today.
Mine's easy. Get involved.
As cliche as it sounds, it's really learning happens outside of the classroom. It really does. And that means it could be in the office hours, but really means it's 4 a.m., you're with your friends, you're talking about your grand plans for life, and talking about the greatest, the mysteries of the world. But that's learning happens outside the classroom.
I think the thing that was hardest for me coming in, first generation from a, let's say, not very functional family, was that it's not just safe to ask for help. It's a really great thing. And you'd be amazed at all the people who will just dive in and give you a hand, and you learn something. And then along the way, you learn that you can be a help to others.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. Let's give them a round of applause.